Who doesn't like a good Metroidvania? I like this series of games quite a lot. In case you're wondering, Metroidvanias are usually 2D games, but sometimes 3D games, where the player has to find different items in order to progress through different areas. So to explore every area multiple times in order to find all the items, as well as beat the game. Now, it seems bad, like backtracking, that kind of sucks. Well, it depends. If you make it good, it can become really fun. Going back to an area to find something that you weren't able to do earlier is a fun. It's a really fun thing to do. It's not for everybody, but people who like it, they really love it. Super Metroid is one of the best games ever made, and I love it. In fact, one of my all-time favorite games, Ori and the Will o Wisps, is It's one of the best games ever made, and it's a Metroidvania. What makes this game, Mr. Metroid, great is the way it plays. You want to find more items to make your character feel even better than it already does, and just the gameplay itself is what really sells a good Metroidvania. So, in 1995, Sega decided that they were going to make their own Metroidvania starring Tails on the Game Gear. The first problem with that is that it's on the Game Gear. While Metroidvanias can work on handhelds, but they are incredibly limited. For example, Metroid 2, Return of Samus, is not a bad game, but it took really the remakes of it in order to be considered a really great game. Because the handhelds, especially the early ones in the 90s, were very limited. A very limited amount of buttons, which is very useful in a Metroidvania. It makes character progression a lot harder because of the limitation of screen and all of the other things. So you think if Metroid 2 wasn't even that great of a game, well, it's not bad, but it's nowhere near as good as the Super Metroid or even the first Metroid. Then that way they think they're going to make a Tails cheap spin-off game on Game Gear and think everything's going to be fine. And that's the main problem I have with Tails Adventure, is that it's just not the best execution of a game. One is gameplay. I mentioned before, gameplay is very important in a Metroidvania. Because if your character doesn't feel good, you're not going to want to upgrade them, especially when there's very little upgrades and it's hard to use your upgrades. And yeah, that's the biggest problem. It's not only is it hard to use your upgrades, and they also do very little. There's a bunch of items in this game, but overall, the gameplay, I don't think, is that amazing. Well, the game isn't that long. It is a lot longer than the typical Game Gear Sonic game. In fact, it took me forever to beat this thing. And there are some parts in the games that are just flat out kind of annoying. Not really like extreme, like hard annoying. It's kind of annoying, which is probably the least favorite thing in the world. Most of the obstacles feel more lame than actually challenging to actually come to be, which is a big problem. There are good moments in this game, and graphically, it's probably one of the best looking Game Gear games. It might be one of the best Game Gear games. It has good moments, but overall, the overall product is just not a very well done one. But hey, let's get into the story, because there's actually quite a lot to say about that part. There is a misconception about this game that it takes place before Tails meets Sonic, but from what I understand from the manual, it takes place after Sonic 2. Tails just takes a nap. I guess that could make sense, but overall, there's really nothing really tells us that it's a prequel, or the fact that Tails doesn't really use his tails to go fast like he does, and that's what Sonic told him to do, or it's not like very well thought out, to be honest. The gameplay doesn't matter if or what. None of these characters come back other than in the comics, but then again, every character comes back in the Archie comics, so it doesn't really matter. The thing that's noteworthy about Tails' Adventure is the first game that Tails showcases his intellect. He was showcased to play at a young age, but here we get to see all his inventions and stuff. Essentially, he's taking a nap on this island, and then the Great Battle Cocoa Empire which is a bunch of birds, are basically attacking the island, tearing down trees and spreading fires. So yeah, it takes place on Cocoa Island, where the Chaos Emeralds are now there, and the Battle Cocoa Army wants it, and Tails has got to protect the island that he lives on, because, yeah, he lives here. He has a house. Yeah, Tails has a house, but you didn't know that, where he can equip some of the items in the game. He's got to protect his house and his island. Tails even learned how to construct a submarine to go underwater and find more islands to fight off the Cocos. Tails has to fight the enemies along the way. Some of them are just kind of generic things, like a bat robot. I'm not sure if the Cocos made it or not, but here's a robot of a bat. Hive. It's full of bees, and if you torch it, a wasp will come out and attack you. They suck. Drill Mole. It's a mole that drills. Nezzo, which is a little mouse robot guy that drops little baby bombs like they're turds. And all the rest of the enemies are just Cocos doing different things, using different mechs and guns. They mostly act the same for the most part, with the exception of the little Coco. He's a little baby. The Cocos have throwing bomb abilities, submarines, and they can even fly now. Well, they're birds, that makes sense. Ones that drop turds on you. Throughout his adventure, Tails will find a number of items to use. Some of them are kind of useful, most of them are pretty useless. Tails' default item is a bomb, which he can drop on when he's flying and throw ahead in kind of an arc. It blows up certain rocks, but overall, it's one of the more annoying items. You kind of wish you had a better way of shooting things. Like, imagine if Samus's only attack in Metroid was something that just arcs over everything and has a little baby explosion. Overall, it sucks. You know, you're like, ugh. Arcing items aren't good, but the fact that it's your main weapon, in fact, there's really no good weapon upgrade. There's like one, but overall, each one's finicky, and you have to only way to swap the items, you only have 4 at a time, is to go to the pause menu and then swap for all the 4 little items you have, and it doesn't really move that fast. So most of the time, you'll be using this chintzy little bomb, and most enemies are kind of annoying to hit with it. The bomb does have upgrades, though like I said, finding the exact footage of when I do stuff is kind of annoying. And so most of the bomb upgrades kind of suck. The large bomb is, oddly enough, a horrible item, where basically you think, oh, maybe my bomb has better range. No, it's just smaller, and it takes forever to explode, and you can use it less, and it doesn't really seem to affect things that much. So overall, large bomb sucks. The remote bomb is kind of interesting, where basically it's like the racks of the bombs that you can choose when remote used to it. It's kind of useful in some areas, other times it's not. I wish there was an easier way to swap them between Best Both Worlds. There really isn't. Later in the game, there is an upgrade to your bomb as a triple bomb, which feels like it just makes the bomb spread a little bit more. It's not really that useful. I thought, well, 3 bombs at once? No, just the same bomb, just has, 3 extra explosions. So yeah, not very good either. The first items you get is the remote robot, known as a T-Pup in the comics. Basically, Tails is a little dog that can go through different little small crannies. You'll be using this guy to just go for stuff. He can fly without any limitation like Tails, and he can grab items for you. Makes stuff easier. There are tons of items in games, but like I said, you'll mostly be using the bomb because most of them suck. There are things like Napalm Bomb, which is useful. It kind of hits up from above. It's kind of slow, though, and you can't really destroy rocks, but it can destroy certain parts of the area. It's mostly good at destroying these beehives, but even then it's kind of fickle. It's not a bad item, but it definitely could have been better used. One of the biggest problems with this game, if you couldn't tell, is like unlike games like Super Metroid or Ori or whatever you want to play, what do you call it, the Hollow Knight or something like that, or Castlevania, there is no upgrades really. Every item is basically its own thing. Or in the Chaos Emeralds, the bombs get upgraded. You get another bomb, but then they'll add more annoyance, so it's better just use a regular bomb. Like, the bomb doesn't get like a napalm ability, it just sucks, most of these games have upgrades they don't have to swap an item out for. There's items and there's upgrades. There's like no upgrades in this game, and that's kind of annoying. There are other annoyances in this game, like here, I can get for these carrots fine with the other items, but it turns out I need a certain item, so I had to go all the way back just to fix this, and that really just pissed me off at the end of the day, because I was kind of getting tired of this game. So while there is cool items, conveyor belts during one part, you need this wrench ability. It's only used for one thing. Like, why would I want that when it's so useless for during other things? I had to look that up. There's no really clear guide in this game, let alone an actual manual to read, because you're not going to find this game out in the wild, let alone with the manual. So overall, a lot of this stuff, it just kind of comes up as bullshit, especially since there's no easy way to swap items. You have to go to Tails' house, and you can use only 4 items. You basically have to exit levels and redo progress constantly if you forgot a certain item. The pause menu is not like a Metroid menu where you can easily swap out items easily, like here. No, you have to be in this certain menu at Tails' house, and then go back out to the level. It is not very useful at all, and I wish they swapped it out. This game would have been so much better if someone fixed all these problems in a remake sort of way. In kind of the vein of MEDIOCRE, which is the remake of Metroid 2 of the Game Boy to make it similar more to like the later Metroid entries, there needs to be something like that for Tails' Adventure that fixes all the problems and makes it flow better. Because there's way too many useless items in here that are very situational. They will never ever really need to use. Like I said, the wrench should have been just part of his equipment rather than just an item, like a generic upgrade. But no, we can't have that. There's other items like a hammer, which is basically useless, like a shitty version of the bomb, but it's only short range. And the Knuckles Punch basically does the same thing too, but that can break through walls, I guess. I guess the hammer can do that too, so whatever. The helmet's also useless. It just defends Tails, but kind of acts like an attack too, so basically it's like the bomb, but useless. Like, all these items keep appearing, and you don't understand why you need them. The teleportation device is one of the most useless items ever, since when you die, you already go back to Tails' house, and you can continue right from the get-go unless you reset your Game Gear. So what was the point of that game? Like, if it actually let you swap items, like, damn, I'd use that, but no, you can swap items, they have to go redo the level, so what's the point? So eventually, Tails' Adventure is just one of those games where it starts off not bad, but you think, oh, I wonder what upgrades I'll get. Gameplay starts to fine, but then it gets more and more annoying, and you realize the items aren't stackable and upgradable, and then you gotta deal with stupid submarine shit, and you die, and it's like, oh god, this sucks. The only good thing about this game is that it has codes where you can easily skip stuff, so that's good. One of the more annoying things is the Tails submarine sections. For some reason, the second button is used to flip the submarine around. It's kind of hard to get used to, and it doesn't really make much sense. It would have been nicer if when you turn left, your submarine turned left, or I'm going to turn around with the second button. And overall, this section, known as, I don't even know what it's called, the lake area, whatever you call it, is kind of annoying. There's multiple different pathways, and nothing really stands out in this level, so you might go to the wrong pathway once in a while. And I was like, they could have designed better level design, but whatever. Tails Adventure does Tails Adventure stuff. One of the only good upgraded items that you can have, but it's really late in the game and hard to find, is the Sonic Spin Dash item. You can tell it's Sonic's face. You also have the Knuckles Punch one, that's pretty useless. And overall, the Spin Dash one makes Tails go a lot faster, and is an item that acts like a bomb and can break through walls. So overall, it's one of the best items in the game, obviously. But the rest of the items are pretty useless. The Night Vision lets you see in the dark in one level, so you have to use Waste Time Spot just for that. And even then, it's not really that important anyway. Speed Boots makes Tails fast, but that should have just been an upgrade in general, not something that you had to select in order to go fast, because then you have to swap out the pause and then press the item if an enemy comes in your way. There's a few enemies in this game, so it makes no sense. Item Radar helps detect items. There's not a whole lot of hidden items in this game, to be honest, in each level. So even then, you still need to figure out how to get to the item, so it's not that useful. And the radio, which is actually misspelt in the menu as radio, which is kind of funny if you ask me. And it does what you think it does. It changes the music. Why would you waste an item slot to change the music of the game? Like, well, who would do that? There's also stuff for your Sea Fox submarine here, like this annoying area where you got to figure out how to get up these walls by using the speed booster. You got to charge it up just the right amount of time to get up this wall, which is easier said than done. There's different items for it, like the regular gun, the Vulcan gun, a torpedo, which gives you fast speed, not fast speed, just faster bullets, extra armor, which makes you invincible, air missiles that shoot in the air, spark, just causes the game to freak out, and mine. I realize the game's paused, but I don't really give a crap. Mines, which are useful for getting to the final area, because it blows stuff down below you, and rocket boosters. Use this item to fly. Most of the levels in the game feel the same. You start off in Poly Forest, you go to Volcanic Tunnel, then Poly Mountain 1, Lake Rocky, Cavern Island, Green Island, Karen Forest, Lake Crystal, Poly Mountain 2, Cocoa Island, and Battle Fortress 1 and 2. And they're mostly the same. There's rocks you gotta blow up, enemies in the way, little crevices you gotta go to, and overall, yeah. And most of the time when there's an item you need to fit an area, it's usually something very minor, like here's night goggles that you use one time, or a wrench that you use one time, but you're needed to do it, so you gotta waste an item spot for that. And like I said, it's not intuitive, there's no really text or anything to figure this stuff out, so it's just kind of annoying. Overall, I don't have a whole lot to say. I feel I said most of the stuff and everything that kind of annoyed me in the game. I would talk more about the levels, but like I said, it is kind of annoying. You have to backtrack a little bit if you want certain items, but nothing's really that important. Sometimes you just gotta know which one's what. It's one of those type of games. And yeah, I like the formula Metroidvania, but when it's done wrong, it just can be a pain in the ass. I actually do like the boss fights in the game. They're actually not too bad at all, actually. If you fight the beginning level here, this is known as none other than the amazing Bird Walker. And yeah, it just walks and shoots fire. You gotta use your bombs, and I feel like here the gameplay fits better with the boss fights than the actual gameplay itself, because you can actually hit them with your bombs. Most of the time, the levels there's rocks in the way, your bomb blast, you gotta aim it just right, unless you have a remote bomb, which can fix that, but sometimes it doesn't fix it. Then you got this boss battle. This is Balcoco XVI, or Speedy, which is an easier thing to say. He's a really fast bird that flies up, and you gotta basically fly up in the level in order to defeat him. The Mecha Golem, which is actually kind of challenging, but kind of in a fun way. Like, it was hard, but at least I was actually having kind of fun when I was trying to fight him. You gotta figure out the pattern and not get hit. Like I said, this game is kind of hard. The Kuko Cruiser, which is a little boat, and you gotta shoot your missiles at it. This is actually one of the funner elements of the submarine scenes. There's Dr. Frakov, who, great name by the way, who you just drop a rock on. I guess he's the doctor or everything. But yeah, very lame boss fight. We have a rematch of Speedy here, who you use your bombs against this time instead of flying away. And final bosses with the Great Battle Coco, or I guess the leader, and he looks pretty easy to defeat, so yeah, he kind of sucks. If you couldn't tell, this is not my footage, because I did not have the patience to beat the game. I got to the final level, and I had so much problem with the submarine shit that I gave up, basically. The game ends with Tails leaving and building up a robot, I guess. That's lovely. Here's what the robot looks in the end. It's kind of disturbing, actually. Tails Adventure is a game I wanted to like, but I had so much trouble in when playing it. It's unfortunate that none of the Tales games I find were actually fun. Tales Adventure came close, but maybe with an actual like fan remake, I'm not sure if that even exists, it could have worked. But overall, the actual Game Gear presentation, it just doesn't. There's just stuff that just so much unintuitive stuff, but not even in a fun way to figure out, because the gameplay is ironically kind of slow. And even with the spin dash item, nothing about this game really strikes me as really that fun. The gameplay elements are just not that great, and the fact that the item swapping, which is one of the most like, essential things, being able to use different types of items and equipment, is so limiting. Like having to go back to a certain area and then redo a certain level to go back and do it is not something that's fun. Yeah, there's backtracking in these games, but usually you have more items and better speed precautions. Like in Super Metroid, you get a giant speed boost like item that helps it easier to go back for different levels and other stuff like that. Tales of Adventure, you have really nothing like that. It's just like, oh, you gotta do stuff over and over and over again until you figure it out. This is not a fun game. It's archaic, like in bad as bad as possible. This game really shouldn't even have been a Game Gear game to begin with. They actually made this full-fledged Genesis game with better, well, some of the quirks worked out. Maybe they could have done it, but Sega kept enforcing the Game Gear. The Game Gear, Game Gear, Game Gear. Why is there so many Sonic games on the Game Gear? I don't really get it. The console's neat and all, that's for sure. I have one, but overall, it's probably my least favorite console that I own. The thing is giant. It's big in the worst way possible. I like big things. I like the Wii. Actually, like the Wii U gamepad. I actually like the Xbox Duke controller. The Game Gear is bad because the buttons feel like crap. The screen is awful. Even though it's backlit, it looks like crap. You have to get in the right light source. The battery life is terrible. The screen is so small. It's overall, it's just not a very good console. And most of these games, no one was buying. In fact, most of the games from '95 at this point, they're so expensive because no one bought them. Like Sonic the Hedgehog series is on a little bit of life support here. They didn't have a main Genesis game in '95. They had one 32X game that didn't even star Sonic. So what was Sega thinking during this time? They needed an actual Sonic game. We got two little sales spin-off games, one that didn't even come into the West, and one that had potential, but they flandered it. They messed it up. I was at a point in this level here where I realized I had needed an item after spending a while here. That is when I kind of gave up on Tales Adventure. I wanted to beat the game, but at this point I kind of lost desire. I was spending way too much time, and not time just like playing the actual games, there's so much content, but time because it just took so long to do. Maybe I suck at it, but I don't know. I played like Super Metroid like 10 times already and beat it, and I just can't. I have so much problem with this game. It kind of just says a lot about it. Overall, I do hear people talk about it, but not really that much to talk about. It's neat, but other than that, it's like, my thing is, even though I record up ahead, this game's taking too much time, and there's going to be longer games that I'm going to have to do later on once we get to the 3D games, that I don't have enough time to waste on Tales of Adventure, especially since when it really comes down to it, I don't have a whole lot to say about it. One of these days, I will beat Tales of Adventure when I'm not at crunch, and I have things better planned out. It's one of those games where you played it before, you might have better time with it, but like I said, first time playing, it's not much of a joy, and it's one of those games I don't think a lot of people are going to come back to. I don't really recommend it. There's way better Metroidvania games, way better Sonic games, and even though I think it could be interesting with Sonic 1, Metroidvania could be interesting, this is not it. And also, the price is expensive, so like I said in the previous videos, I don't recommend getting any gamer game on the actual console, since the console itself is not very good. The game is on Sonic Adventure DX. We got one gear left, so this is the last time I'm going to mention Sonic Adventure DX in the Game Gear part. That we'll be mentioning when we get to this actual Sonic Adventure talk. So yeah, the Sonic Adventure DX, I'm getting ready to stop mentioning you, so thank goodness. Sonic Gems Collection also has the game. This is a really weird collection, but I think I'm gonna talk about it in its own video when we get to it down the road, because it's just a very weird collection. The game was also available on the 3DS eShop, but of course it shut down. RIP. And of course, it was featured on Sonic Origins Plus, because it has every gamer game on that console. Not console, but the game. Tales of Adventure goes in the D tier. Overall, it might have been B tier even if it was better executed, but I spent hours in the game, more so than any other game on this list so far, and I just, most of that time was just spent trying to figure out where I'm supposed to go, having to look up guides for stuff that would have been more obvious in other Metroidvania games. I know there was an exploration value, but it wasn't fun enough to explore. And overall, the execution wasn't that great. Even the story, which I thought would be more interesting, really doesn't have a lot going for it. I forgot, well, that interesting stuff was actually in the Archie comics. And while it seemed like the Battle Coco are seemed more interesting than the characters in Tales Sky Patrol, at the end of the day, they're just regular birds that have very similar plans to Dr. Eggman, so there's really not much of a point. The game taking place before or after Tails meeting Sonic is ultimately null because there's really nothing in this game that carries over to another Sonic game. It was another filler Game Gear title made by Aspect, and it's another one of those why can't they make actual games for their main consoles or work focus on making Saturn games. The Game Gear, like I don't understand Sega's mindset in making all of these Sonic Game Gear games. When it comes to the people hating on Sonic Labyrinth, but Tails, Sky Patrol, and Adventure, or even Sonic 2, 8-bit gets a pass, I just don't understand it. But that's just me personally. We are going on to 1996, where we'll actually continue talking about the main Sonic aspect of games and cultural, because 96 is when things start to really go off the deep end. During the classic era, where it gets we're getting into the dark era, but I'm actually more excited since we're going to go to new consoles and only the last Game Gear games coming out. Thank goodness, I'm so tired of playing Game Gear games. I'll see you then when we enter the year of 1996.